have a special guest singer this morning that you are in for a real treat. So I want to tell you how this came about, because I love how life works and the serendipity of life and all that. And for those of you that are on Facebook, I don't know if you noticed, but I only see the same 3 people all the time on my Facebook feed now. I don't see anybody else's, but it just so happened that on a particular day, I saw a post from Reverend David Alexander in Portland, Oregon, the spiritual leader there, and he was posting this video of this amazing woman that sang at the Portland Interfaith Gospel Choir Fall Concert. Come to find out in 2012. So he just happened to repost it, I guess. And I just happened to see it. So what I did was I reached out to him and I said, when I heard the song, and I said, David, I was on Facebook and I'm like, David, and can you ask the artist to give up the words of her original work so we can sing it here? Well, before David could reply, the original work artist replied. And she said, well, as a matter of fact, I actually live in Dallas between August and May, because she's a student at SMU. And I went, oh my gosh. Well, so, Lauren, would you come and share your gift with our community? And so, Lauren, wait, oh, come on up, come on. Wait. This is Lauren Steele, everybody. And although I met her on Facebook, and now we're Facebook friends, this was the first time I got to really meet her this morning. And so I wanted y'all to be able to, she lives here. We didn't have to go to any expense. Isn't that great? And the original artist gets to sing it. Isn't that awesome? And, though we may still steal it if you let us, and not only did I want you to experience her, but I'm so proud of our community. I so love this community and who we are. I wanted her to be able to experience you, so that she can tell her friends at SMU, so that maybe her friends know that CSLDallas exists on campus, right? So I invite you to soak in the river of Lauren Steele.
There's a river somewhere flows through the lives of everyone. Oh, said, and it flows through the mountains and the valleys, oh, and the meadows of time. Said, there's a river somewhere flows through the lives of everyone. Oh, said, and it flows through the mountains and the valleys, oh, and the meadows of time. Sometimes I think folks overcomplicate, refuse to associate themselves with those of different culture or faith. I think it's time to acknowledge what's connecting us, rather than objecting that's causing us to separate. There is some unseen warmth that is binding us all, yet I'm finding us all trying to break through it. Pretending a vision of equality is something we have to find, even though deep in our minds we always knew it. See, hate must be taught, but love is instilled in our souls from the moment we come to be. Seems like to find security within, we rely on our differences, as if there's some lack of similarity. I tell you, there is a river and it flows through us all, and I encourage you to get your feet wet just once. Because I guarantee you, We are all connected in some way. You just might not be able to see it up front. There's a sweet song of love sings through the lives of everyone. Said, and it sings through the mountains and the valleys, in the meadows of time. These variances were made to appreciate. They weren't made with intentions of hate. They aren't here as a means to separate rather than to congregate, recognize, and celebrate. See, love is deeper than any complexion. God is bigger than any religion. Peace is simpler than all your aggressions. Acceptance comes hand in hand with confession. I think it's time we focus our attention on this sweet song of love, gripping our hearts with affection rather than ways we can break this world up into sections. I love you all. And I say that with no apprehension. Because we are beautiful. Beautiful beyond even our own comprehension. There's a river somewhere flows through the lives of everyone. Said, and it flows through the mountains and the valleys, and the meadows of time. Yes, it do. 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 Yes, it do.
Lauren Steele. So let me tell you about Lauren, because I didn't do that before she started, but I know you're going to want to continue to get some of hers. So she let me know that there's an EP, which means a short collection, on Bandcamp. So if you go to Low, L-O, Steele, S-T-E-E-L-E, Low Steele at Bandcamp, you can download all of her songs for free. Wow. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah. There's a river. There's this river of life that flows through all of us. All of us. I love every word of that song and spoken word. It just flows through all of us, and it taps right into our theme. And it flows through the mountains and the valleys and the meadows. There's no place that it does not flow. It flows through all of us. And as Lauren says, it connects us to us all. I was just like, yeah, she is a part of this community, whether she's ever, quote, a part of this community. And so one of the ways in which we can really know this, and not know this, but know this and experience this, is through the help of beauty and nature. So I believe and know from my own experiences that beauty in nature has this incredible, infinite wisdom. It has truth, it has inspiration, and it even has some lessons for us. So I'm going to share some of that with us today. And we've got to be open to receive them. Even in the moment, if we think we're not, the seed is planted for us to watch that bloom somewhere, sometime. So I was really thinking about the title of the talk today in our monthly theme, and I just said, okay, this is some wild flower power. Okay, well, I thought about just saying flower power, and I thought y'all would all like go, oh, yeah, 16. And I thought the men would go, we're going to have a girl talk. We're going to have a chick flick talk, you know? Not true. This is some wildflower power. And so, sometimes you actually need to go out and seek it. You need to seek the inspiration. You need to go out and seek the wisdom. You've got to go out and seek the lessons. Sometimes they just come to us. But recently, you know, I've gone out to seek them. And some of the lessons that I've learned from Wildflowers is that there is a universal wholeness, this oneness of life that we always talk about here in our teachings. There is this eternal uniqueness. It's eternal, and it's a uniqueness to each and every one of us, and there's this perfection in this diversity of life. There's also this lesson of thriving where you are. There's a lesson that we can learn of non-attachment, and then there's a lesson about how we can love and support not only and nurture ourselves, but those around us. So Ernest Holmes tells us that the God of beauty is understood by the artist who appreciates the beautiful and senses in all forms some reflection of that universal wholeness which finds harmony in the perfect adjustment of itself, to all of its parts. So the artist actually appreciates all of this. The artist, when one is contemplating and I know we have a lot of artists in this community, when they contemplate the wholeness of their work, they have to be with that entire work. They have to be with that which they feel and the vision, and they have to tap in to this wholeness, this universal presence. Along the way, however, of course, there may be some parts to this wholeness. They may have various paints that they're using, or brushes, or sculpturing tools, or whatever the medium is. And so there's some appearance of individuality as that artist moves through that piece of work in creating it, but they still have to have the wholeness in mind, and they have to be with it for that art to come out, albeit Michelangelo or my first painting that Reverend Peacher showed last week, right? So this universe is perfect, it's whole, it's undivided, and no matter what can appear to us, and it does appear to us in any given moment, you know, in the microcosm of our own life, or the microcosm of what's happening around us, or the microcosm of the news. You know, all these microcosmic levels, we may think, oh, there's absolutely disharmony, there's absolutely separation, there's dividedness. It is not the truth of life itself. It cannot occur. There's this universal harmony and this universal wholeness. So, just like the artist, we must, as best we can, give our undivided attention to this. We must give our undivided attention so, again, not that we can know it, we can actually feel it and experience it. And I have to really be honest. I intentionally went out to seek it on vacation. You know, I don't know about you, but there's just been a lot of stuff, it feels like, this year. There's just a lot of stuff going on at all levels. And my cup was feeling pretty empty. And when I say that my cup was feeling empty, I was not experiencing the feeling within my own self of God, of the presence. And so I intentionally went out to seek it. And where I go is in nature. I intentionally sought it the moment I got here in Dallas in the spring of 2014 because I came from the Bay Area. There was a lot of nature and beauty there. So I intentionally went out to seek it here in the Metroplex. And there is beauty. People in this community have told me some of the sacred spots around Dallas, and it's here. And if some of y'all been here a long time, you all know where, I'll be happy to share that with you. But we need to seek it, whatever it is that'll fill us up, and knowing God's Spirit, the divine presence. So, for me, John Muir, the naturalist, just speaks volumes in that in every walk with nature, one receives far more than perhaps we seek. And that's what happened to me in the mountains on the hikes around Breckenridge, Colorado, because I had not ever hiked in Colorado. And I actually received far more than I was seeking. There was moments when Dr. Peter and I took the hikes together that I felt so filled up and feeling Spirit, God, the presence, that just tears, I couldn't stop the tears. They just kept cascading out. Just overwhelming presence. And so we walked most of the time in silence, but there were times where we just had to share, like, do you feel it? Not do you see it? Do you feel it? Right? And so there was so much beauty and there was so much awe that I actually couldn't not only receive it all, but I couldn't comprehend it all. So I'm still being with all of that in the presence of my vacation. So sometimes our revelations, sometimes our lessons actually come later than the moment that an event or an experience occurs, yes? I mean, it comes later, and some of that's been happening for me recently. So when I started thinking about the wildflower power, well, actually just the power and the presence, wildflowers just kept coming up. They just kept coming up, and that's what I saw more than anything on these hikes were these beautiful wildflowers. Now, I got to tell you, as you might imagine, if you've seen big fields of wildflowers, there's no way to capture this on a picture. There's just no way, much less a PowerPoint slide. You know, these fields went on for what seemed like forever and ever and ever. So, as we were standing on this one particular hike, my favorite hike, we were standing and just giddy with this beauty. We just started laughing and saying, wow, this is the expression of the manifest body of God. This is the expression. It's right here. It's the expression of the manifest body of God right here. And it was like this explosion. You know, when you stand in a field or somewhere in nature, it just feels like there's this explosion of life, whether it's a waterfall, and it was exploding everywhere. And so the other thing is that we got this feeling, and even Dr. Peters said this, she was like, God is so delighting in itself. You could just feel the delight, the joy of God as these wildflowers. Okay, are y'all ready to send me to a, straitjacket? Okay, just checking. And so in the field of wildflowers, there's this unbelievable diversity and this exquisite manifestation of it all. And the thing is that each and every wildflower is so eternally unique and perfect. Each and every one of them. And that's true of everything in this universe. It's true about these wildflowers, and it's especially true of us. So can we bring the wildflowers into each of us? Raymond Charles Barker who is the author of next month's Book of the Month, and I pull this quote out of it. He is like an Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind. If you haven't read a lot of Raymond Charles Barker. And so Raymond Charles Barker tells us that in you there is eternal uniqueness. In you is a quality which is not in any other living soul. It never has been, and it never will be. A quality. Now, he goes on to say that there is something about you that is peculiar in you. This something has the power to maintain you as an original, unique person. No matter what may be done to make people look alike, act alike, or think alike, it never succeeds. Haven't we found that to be true? He says uniformity is an utter impossibility. That makes me breathe easier. And so it is for each of us, especially starting here, each of us to celebrate and honor our own uniqueness and to know that there is this eternal uniqueness. There's some quality or qualities in us that's nowhere else. So now I just can let my enthusiasm out as much as I want, right? Or whatever that is. So we are to celebrate and honor and respect each other's uniqueness too. Can we see it? Can we acknowledge it? Can we love it and not attempt to wash over it? So when we see the various colors and the diversity of wildflowers in an entire field, right? Can we stand in that same field when it's now humanity and be with all the shapes, all the sizes, all the colors, all the everything that makes us this eternal uniqueness as the manifest body of God? Now, in thinking about this, I go, okay, yes, well, do y'all like when you drive, have you ever driven down the road and just seen a whole field of sunflowers? Well, that's beautiful. You know, I had an opportunity to be for the first time this summer in a lavender field. I loved it. I got to be in the middle of it. I got to smell only lavender. I got to be with lavender, you know, lavender bushes all over. It was just like washed in the lavender. But I wouldn't want to only have lavender fields to smell and to be in. There's wisdom in how God shows up, right? Now, if we think about it, though, specifically in a field of wildflowers, all the flowers are intermixed. They're all intermixed, right? And so there tends to be a lot of beauty when things are intermixed and interwoven. And so, you know, I just wouldn't want to go on a hike and only see lupines. I wouldn't want to go on a trip to see flowers and only see bluebonnets, right? I wouldn't want to go on a hike and only see foxgloves. It's this beautiful, intertwined, intermixed of all the flowers. Look at them as best you can on a PowerPoint, right? Just look at them. I mean, every single one of them are unique. So we were standing in these fields of wildflowers, and we just kept saying, you know, this is how we know that we live in the manifest body of God. And then it hit us, and each and every person is like this. It was just like, oh my gosh, each and every person is like this, right? And no matter where each of us have been raised, no matter how we look, no matter what we believe in, no matter who we love, no matter, right? This is how we show up too, just like this. And we got that, and standing in that field, it was just an explosion. Again, this explosion of the manifest body of God. And that's what this is an explosion. This is where spirit delights itself. As each of us, spirit delights itself as each of us. Now, then I started to think. This is my lessons after coming down off the mountain. I started to think, I'm like, well, do we just stand in the field with me? Do we stand in a field of wildflowers and do we say, well, there are too many lupines in this field? You know what? I wish there weren't so many foxgloves growing here. Because you know what? Those foxgloves, the presence of the foxglove is messing up my field. Do we stand in it and go, well, these sunflowers are taking over this field. They're just taking over. Oh, and then fear creeps in, and then it's like, well, start thinking that, oh, well, we lupines, we might not thrive, and we might not have the same privileges or anything like that. Do we stand in the field and start feeling that? And I just don't want them to be so tall. Why do they have to be so tall, those sunflowers? I'm this little bitty lupine, this little blue-purple lupine down here, and that sunflower is just so tall. Why do they have to shine so much? Why do they have to want to be seen? How do we stand in the field? One of the lessons that I learned after coming down off the mountain as well is that I started to realize that wildflowers have their own microcosms. They truly have their own microcosms. They're flowers that grow in the deep valleys of the mountains. They're flowers that grow in the subalpine. There are flowers that grow in the alpine meadows, and that's like beyond the tree line. You're getting up pretty high beyond the tree line. And so I started thinking about this and like, wow, this is another example of universal wholeness, that which finds harmony in the perfect adjustment of itself in all of its parts. So it's finding harmony because these wildflowers are growing where they're planted. And they thrive in the places that they're planted. Now, some aren't going to thrive and, there aren't wildflowers down in the valleys. But, in the subalpine, I saw some that normally don't belong there, and they were thriving. So they are just growing and thriving wherever they're planted. And I started thinking about that. Do we ensure that our own life is a beautiful garden, no matter where we're planted? That, again, was one of the things that, a lot of people ask me, like, how can you leave the Bay Area and go to Dallas? Well, I just said one reason. One reason. And only one. You. Only one. That's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason that keeps me here. Doesn't matter where I go. I don't go, oh, I wish. One. I had to make sure that I would grow and thrive where I was planted. So yes, I thrive here, but also outside of here. Seek out that. Well, there's beauty everywhere, right? So, are we filled and allowing ourselves wherever we're planted in any moment to be ensuring that we are growing in joy, we are growing in love, we're growing in the goodness and all the good that we can bring into our life? Or do we perhaps focus on what we think or feel isn't working in our field? Well, this isn't working. This, oh my gosh, this just isn't, going to do it, right? We don't take in this field of wildflowers and focus on, but look, there's a big blade of grass growing right there. What's wrong with that? There must not be something working right. We got to get rid of that, or we got to bring something in so that blade of grass, we don't start going, but look at that, or look at that. We just look at the field, and we take in all of its beauty, and we say it's good. And we bring that goodness. So, do we judge it? Do we pick at it? Do we place our attention on that, and that, and that, and pick at it? Now, I'm going to guess that you know people around you, perhaps even yourself, that tend to point out and focus on what's not working. And do we do this in our home life? Do we do this in our work life? Do we do this in our spiritual community? Or do we look at all the good in that whole field and say, oh my gosh, that's so good, right? Another lesson I thought about off the mountain. Wildflowers teach us about non-attachment. They really do. They can teach us about non-attachment, sort of to be inspired to, they can inspire us not to be so attached to things. Ernest Holmes brings in the master teacher Jesus and says, "Behold, I make all things new." He says there is nothing permanent but change, and the infinite intelligence can never be caught in anything it does. It can never be stuck, right? It can never be caught in anything it does. He says what it does expresses its being at that particular time. Tomorrow, it may do it differently, in a different way, but always in accord with the fundamental harmony. So, if you've ever, and I love this about Texas, if you've ever taken the time to go out in the spring to experience the bluebonnets and the wildflowers in Ennis, Texas, or wherever your favorite spot is, you know what I'm talking about, or you're going to realize what I'm talking about. If you haven't, that's the commercial. I've been every 3 years I've been here. Don't miss the bluebonnets in spring. It's like gorgeous. Ennis is going to appreciate you because we're all going to flood and up their economy. But it's like gorgeous, right? And so, year after year, what I've noticed in 3 consecutive years is there's a bluebonnet trail. And you get the map and you follow. And what I've noticed is, well, this year, the first year, there was this big yard, someone's property, big yard, and it was just covered in bluebonnets and Indian paintbrush, just covered. And all the photographers and all the families and all the babies, they're all going out. It's a great place to take pictures. And they're just laying down in the bluebonnets, and it's like the spot that gets all the attention. Next year, there's barely a bluebonnet or Indian paintbrush there. It's across the road. It's across the road. It's changed. It's in a different spot. I imagine in the joy and the feelingness of life, the seeds as wildflowers are going, yep, I'm light. I'm not attached to anything. The wind's just going to take me right over here. And then it's like, oh, here we are. But, it's like it always moves. It's always different. So this attention and admiration is drawn to somewhere else. And so do we get attached to the way things are? Life falls forward. Change is inevitable, if you don't know that by now. And so what is in our consciousness to ensure that in this constant change, we can continue to accept our good? We continue to accept our good and not get stuck in in our ways and our ideas or doing things a particular way. Well, this is the way it's always been. Okay, can we trust in the harmony and the perfection of that which is happening, that which is taking place? Perhaps it's just showing up in a new way or a new form or a new idea. And so also, naturally, in this flowing of the seeds by the wind and everything else of wildflowers, sometimes, there's this life naturally tends to shine on another place, another area. Okay. Are we attached or do we get uncomfortable? What happens with that? Sometimes flowers just move to the other side of the road, right? And then I thought, then a new perspective right in that moment came to me, and I went, wow, for that yard where there was all this attention and all this activity and, everybody was there. When they moved to the other side of the road, it gave that spot some time to replenish. It gave that spot some time to reflect, perhaps, to participate in the vibrancy and the thriving of the whole. And not, I better go, life itself didn't go, nope, pluck up these wildflowers and bring them back on this side of the road. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? And yet, what happens inside of us? Okay, then I got a whole new set of wisdom come in. And it happened last night. I was like, truly, that's about it. I can't add anything else. But there was one more lesson that the wildflowers wanted to teach me that I wanted to share with you. And I didn't know this before last night. I know many of you are going to recognize this. That's an Indian paintbrush, right? It's all over Texas in the bluebonnets in the midst. I actually saw some in the alpine meadows, or maybe the subalpine, right in the mountains of Colorado, and we were like, Indian paintbrush, and they were all these other colors that I wasn't used to seeing, because I had never seen Indian paintbrushes until I got here. But I learned something new about them, and they can teach us something, these Indian paintbrushes. What I discovered last night is that the roots of an Indian paintbrush are not strong enough to absorb all that's necessary for them to thrive. Their roots aren't strong enough, so they can't absorb the water, all the water and all the nutrients and all the minerals that they need in order to thrive. Okay, that's just the way they are. So the paintbrush roots buddy up to the bluebonnets and the grasses. I went, oh my gosh. They buddy up to the bluebonnets and the grasses so that they can thrive, right? And they can siphon off just a little, just enough. They can siphon off enough water and dissolve the minerals from their partner's roots that they are absorbing. Okay. Be in this field. Be with this. So there are times, aren't there, in each of our lives, and specifically, I'm going to say in the life of this community, where some of us were going through something ephemeral, temporarily, where our roots just don't seem as strong. And we need to buddy up with someone to help us thrive. Now, it's just painful when we hear that somebody went through something And they're most likely not only on the other side of it, but it was a long time ago, and we didn't know. Or they didn't reach out to someone in this community and buddy up with them. And we can do this together. That's what community is all about. And there's nothing diminishing the beauty, the vibrancy, the thrivingness, and the strength of an Indian paintbrush just because they buddy up to some grasses and bluebonnets. And they do that so that expressing as God can show itself. So I really want to encourage each of you, when you feel like your roots are fragile, to buddy up, to let someone know. Let them know if you want the practitioners and ministers to know. That's what we're here for. You know, yes, in the celebrations and all that, but also when you feel your roots, because we got you in the field. And yet, on another note, what the Indian paintbrush taught me last night was I started reflecting. I took this picture, and I started reflecting, and I was like, look, because the Indian paintbrush buddies up and makes sure that they're thriving. They're like, I'm thriving. I want to thrive. Here I am. It does not diminish the bluebonnets at all, or the grasses. The whole field thrives. And that's what we hold in this world that works for everyone. So, Ernest Holmes wraps it all up when he says, there is one. There is one and not two. There is one and not two. He says, never forget that. Anywhere in the universe, just one. That one life is the substance of everything. It is one in unity, but multiple in manifestations. It is one substance from which an infinite variety of different things come, but every one of those things is made out of the one thing. You see, the flowers, they have wild power, right? They share their wisdom, their truth, their inspiration, and their lessons with us. And nature and beauty is all around us. It is the expression of the manifest body of God. It is the explosion of the exuberance of life. And it is God simply delighting in itself. And it's doing that. It is doing that in such diverse and exquisite ways. And so no matter what is going on, there is only one. Oneness, no matter what, can ever be broken. It just can't. Sometimes, if you remember the picture in the beginning, the wildflowers clump together. I don't know why. Maybe the birds went. But sometimes the lupines go, hey. And then there they are. But we cannot, under any circumstance, get out of the oneness. What we can do is not be conscious of it. And sometimes, that triggers us when the seeming stuff is going on. And when that happens, I trust we'll all stand and remember and be in a field of wild flowers together and be the power and the manifestation of the body of God. And so it is. So I invite us to go to prayer, to go into prayer, to go into that infinite field of grace and love and peace and harmony. Imagining this universal presence that has no beginning and has no end, standing at the top of everything. It can't stand at the top of anything because it's everywhere. But imagine it's standing at the top of everything, seen and unseen. And it's just feeling the joy, feeling the love, feeling the pride of this explosion of itself, of all the joy and all the harmony and all the peace. Just the explosion of, yes, seeming chaos and discord so that there's more joy and peace and harmony. Because we know that when discord happens, there's more harmony afterwards. When tragedy occurs, there's more connection. So this infinite life, this one thing, just imagine that it's exploding in and through all things. And it's proud of how it's showing up. And so each of us are this microcosm, this individual expression of this explosion. Each of us is our own explosion of joy and peace and love and harmony and beauty. And we can be the ones, we can be the blue bonnets. We can be the blue bonnets and the grasses to say, it's all right, Indian paintbrush. We're here. We can be the ones to wrap our consciousness and our love around everyone right now, starting with our own community who's going through some sort of health challenge, whether we know it or not. Some are in hospitals, some are in their home, some are in Salt Lake City, Utah. But we're all together, collectively standing in the field, knowing their perfection and their wholeness. We know that there are people in this community that have been released from jobs, sometimes yesterday and sometimes months ago. And we can stand in the field with them and know and claim their abundance and that they get to give their gift in the form of work. We can stand collective in the field and we can support the Indian paintbrushes for anyone in this community that is going through something where they feel their roots are tired or tethered or weak or torn. And we can say, we're the blue bonnets. We're the grasses. We gotcha. And we extend our consciousness to every single person and being on this planet, this Mother Earth, because weather continues to shift and change, and there are floods and there's earthquakes, and there's just all kinds of just destruction in nature itself, and yet it always replenishes. We know that there's fear and there's anger and there's feelings of separation, not only here in this country, but in the world. And we stand in our consciousness and hold it and say, we got you. Life itself is good. And so together we thrive. Together we grow. Together we make mistakes. Together we learn. But together, we are the ones to stand in this field for the sake of Dallas, in this country, in this world, so that we can experience and know a world that works for everyone. And so it is.